Ugh. That's not too bad. I can clean that up quick. Howdy folks, welcome to another episode of the Rifleture channel. Just doing a little morning stroll around Rifleture Ranch here. And I thought I'd do a little kind of a catch up with you guys, an update, maybe a channel update, show you some of the stuff I've been working on here in the, I'm pretty sure this is a hawthorn tree, and the grouse like to, we've been having some freezing rain, you can tell. Anyway, grouse like to come up into this tree, which always amazes me because this is, you know, those are really pointy. Kids don't climb this tree, by the way. No surprise there, but there are berries, so they're going after these little berries. Here's the wood pile. Then this here is about not quite half the size it used to be. I got a little bit more cutting to do, so I've got it all tarped up. This is going to be a pain in the ass. This is some lower logs. There's a different tarp under there, but it's our little fire pit area. But yeah, so that's birch right there. We've been burning birch. We've been burning that. We've been burning birch now for about a month. So I'm not quite finished cutting all that birch, but I've got probably another 2 truckloads, and then I'm good for winter. But anyway, so I thought maybe what I do is just a little kind of a video update here. I'll show you some of the things I've been working on. And kind of a new project, which is going to be a winter project, and it involves this hunk of steel right here. A lot of you know what that was. Some of you that don't are going to learn. This is an M1 Garand receiver. Yeah, it's Italian. This was actually a gift from Fluffy the cat. I'm not quite sure why he gifted this to me, but it's because of him that I have this. And it is an Italian. I was thinking, geez, I'm going to hide the serial number. Google, Facebook, Twitter, they all seem to want to keep track of your serial numbers. But the reason why I'm going to let you know about this one, this is rifle 6246, or at least it will be, is because I want to make this a channel rifle, which means it's going to be a regular attendee in different Rifleture videos. You got to make sure that I was just speaking to Fluffy the cat yesterday, and he kind of walked me through a little process as it applies to these receivers. One of the first things you want to do is to make sure that the serrations on the rear of, well, where your windage knob is going to be, is that those aren't mushed over or flat, that they're still nice and crisp, right? You want to make sure the heel of the receiver here hasn't been peened. You'll see some mushrooming of the steel back there, and that happens when you don't have a strong enough operating rod spring. You batter the receiver because the spring isn't strong enough. You want to make sure that that this right here isn't cracked. I think that's a spillway for the, not a spillway, but a recess for the firing pin. And you also want to make sure that the lugs are not injured or cracked or mushroomed at all as well, right? So I mean, this is a straight receiver. It's all those areas look brand spanking new. So, oh, and by the way, in case you were wondering, check this sweatshirt out. It's even got a place for a beer right here, which I'll use for an M1 Garand receiver. All right. Or maybe I won't. There. Anyway, a bunch of guys, U.S., Canadian military, who have a tendency to keep in contact. And so we all got one of these. It's got the, of course, it's got maple leaf on one side, American flag on the other. The M4 and the C7A1. I think it's C7A1. Yep, it is. Anyhow, oh, M1 Garand. Don't let me forget about that. Here's the woodshed. Just built this a few months ago. So this system is, you know, we've got lots of freezing rain, so obviously this is helping, but the idea here is that this just kind of swings out, just a 1x6 down there holding it on. Am I recording? I think it is. Anyway, so I gotta fill this hole in the wood. This is all birch. Keep a little bit of that birch bark up there because it's good fire starter. It burns black though, so it burns dirty. Anyway, I guess I'm gonna fill this one more pallet up and we're good to go. Anyway, so this it's a little bit heavy maybe for the tarp, but you know, I want air to get in and out of here. I want this wood to, if it's wet, I want it to dry. So I want some air movement. The back is also tarped up, but the sides are not. And there's the wood splitter. Got to have one of those. Yeah, that's an old Canadian Army poncho, just tied up. I don't mind sacrificing this poncho because, frankly, the last dude that wore it, he didn't clean it before it was stored. Whew. Anyhow, so this M1 Garand receiver, if you were to build an M1 Garand, how would you do it and why would you do it that way? So I've been kind of working through this mental process here. I'm trying to figure out what it is that I'm going to do with this receiver and make it work. And I was thinking that it'd probably be in 308. Criterion barrel, chrome lined if I can help it. Essentially a rack grade rifle. I don't want anything fancy. I just want it to look original. And but in 308. That's kind of where I was thinking of going with it. There's all kinds of different calibers that you can get for these things. Configurations that you can get for an M1 Garand. But what would you do? And here's the other idea that I have, is that I'm going to set up an account because a build is going to cost money, something which I don't have a large amount of. Maybe one of the reasons why we run wood heat is just because of cost. And so what I was thinking I'd do is just make it a channel rifle, a project rifle, and I'll just keep a log on where I am with that build. And in many ways, I suppose, you guys could even contribute to it, whether it's through Patreon or through Patreon, or maybe even Patreon. Maybe even PayPal. So I mean, if you want to be an active participant in the build of this M1 Garand, there's an opportunity. And I'll keep track of any funds you guys actually donate to the channel. I think I'm pretty much going to have to donate all of the funds that come to the channel because, frankly, there isn't a lot of it. And so if I'm going to get anywhere with this rifle, the money's going to have to come from somewhere, and I don't want to have to dip into the kids' Christmas fund in order to do that. Okay. And there is the grouse. Way over there. Edge of the building. You see him? It's on the fence. All puffed up like a ball. He's not moving. Let's see how close we can get. I don't have a zoom on this camera. And so, he's moving. Oh, he's gone. This here, I figure, this here was the original homestead, I think. there's been all kinds of different doors and rooms that have been built in this thing. It's barely standing up now. I figure this is probably a World War II, maybe Korean War era house that a family lived in while they're... This is all farmland here once upon a time. Horses, stables, everything back here back then. And I think somebody lived here because there's stove jack holes all over the place. That's a pretty cool building. But it's not going to be too much longer before the snow load knocks it down. Anyhow, things are doing great over here. Well, 2020, worst year ever in my lifetime, certainly. But now you gotta keep your mind moving. You gotta keep your mind busy. You gotta keep yourself busy in different projects. I mean, people would go nuts, locked up in an apartment room where there's nothing to do. You got nothing to do outdoors. You got no access to a shop or some tools to keep yourself busy, keep your mind moving. Well, all this stuff is going on. We're in lockdown right now. Another 2 weeks. So, and masks are now mandatory in this area. For the next 2 weeks, we got a spike because people are just being complacent. And, there's my neighbor's lovely dog again. I don't like it when neighbors' dogs bark at me on my own property. So anyways, the point is I hope you guys are doing great. I hope you guys are doing all right in the, considering the circumstances that we all find ourselves in right now. And I hope that you guys have got some kind of outlet to vent off steam or to focus yourself, to kind of get out of this continuous social media cycle that that are cooped up in these buildings, these apartment complexes and whatnot. And I just have to sign off. Now, there's been a whole bunch of requests from people out there for me to make videos on certain subjects. And there's about 8 or 9 videos that I've declined to make. These are videos that I actually was writing down a script, just getting some ideas down. And I decided not to make them because they weren't positive in nature. And what we need is some more positivity, I think. We need to maybe focus on a little bit on what we're doing right. Worrying about things that we can actually influence and impact rather than the things that we cannot influence or impact. Because all this negativity will wear you down after a while, folks. And I'm no different. And so I've purposefully made a shift to not focus on all the negativity, because it's just no good for you. It's no good for me. It's no good for anyone. And you see what's happened to the people that have just drunk all that stuff in. They've become toxic and poisonous themselves, and that's not good. These are difficult times. The U.S. election. What are we? We're over 2 weeks into it now, and we still don't know who the president is. However, a lot of what Trump's legal team has said is very impressive. But at the same time, if they're right, then the election of 2020 was stolen, which would make it the largest criminal act in probably the world's history, if you think about it that way. And if it is true, how much of it was privy to Biden? All of it? Was he one of the generals in behind the scenes pulling the strings? How much of the how much of the DNC was involved in it? Anyway, those are all friggin' rabbit holes that you could disappear down into. And I suppose the question to be asked is whether or not you think that's a subject that is worth you losing your peace of mind over in the short term. Long term, certainly it is. Anyway, that's it. Give the M1 Garand some thought. If you want to donate to the channel, I've got my Patreon information down below. You can do a direct donation to the PayPal account. But I prefer to kind of keep it through Patreon. At least there, I mean, I really need to be using Patreon a little bit more often. So far as I have a bunch of patrons out there, but I'm kind of focusing on making YouTube videos, and there's a bunch of Instagram posts out there. I just make the natural assumption that my Patreon clients are actually on Instagram and Facebook and Parler, which I just have a new account. I've made about 6 or 7 posts on it. I'm not convinced about it yet, but I'm going to pay a little bit less attention to Twitter. Well, I already do. Twitter is just a toxic dumpster that's on fire of evil, toxic, poisonous people, and I don't want to associate with that. But I do have a Twitter account. I also have my Facebook account. I'm going to be spending a little bit less time on there, on that Facebook group, and more time on Parler, and it's because Facebook was shutting down like Stop the Steal groups and stuff like that, and they were shutting down these groups that were worried about what was happening with regards to the U.S. election. Twitter was actively censoring the president's tweets, and that is called election meddling. Honestly, that's the way I see it. I see it as election meddling, and I don't care if it's on their platform. It's called election meddling, and they're part of the problem, and so they're going to get a little bit less from me. And so I've signed up for Parler. I invite you to join me. We should not be supporting or sponsoring groups that do that, or actively engage in those kinds of activities during an election. It was a real eye opener for me, and I know it was a real eye opener for you. The left is screaming that this is undemocratic for people that have been bullied by the left consistently, and these computer heads, I call them computer heads, Silicon Valley executives that have been pulling these strings like a puppet for what you see and what you're allowed to hear, and the opinions you're allowed to have. You will be censored, and so that's a real problem for me. I know it is for a lot of you too, and so that's why I've opened a Parler account. So everything I post on Facebook, I'm going to also be posting there. I'm still uploading to BitChute. BitChute's a little bit of a pain in the ass, to be honest with you. But I want to have a fallback location to YouTube in case for one reason or another some Silicon Valley executive decides that Richard's gone or Rifle Chair's gone. With a delete, just the press of a button. We saw it happen to Stefan Molyneux. We saw it happen to people like Gavin McInnes. And so I pay attention. I got this little reservoir of memories in the back of the head there, that all these different characters that have just disappeared. I think Gavin McInnes is still active on censored.tv, and Stefan Molyneux, I think he's actually come back to YouTube in some manner or some way. But anyways, I guess the point is that I'm on Parler now, and I invite you to come along and join me. Anyhow, folks, that's it. It's a short video update as to where I am. We're heading into winter. The M1 Garand is obviously going to be one of my primary focuses during this period. Again, another project. Incidentally, if you've been thinking about an M1 Garand project, I don't think that there's ever been a more opportunistic time than now to actually get into it. You can get yourself an M1 Garand receiver for about $100 from what I've been able to determine, giving you those 3 basic criteria as to how it is that you might be able to assess or size up your receiver. Take pictures get them to send you pictures of the recoil lug, of that little cross area there where the firing pin recess needs to be. Make sure that's not cracked and that the lugs aren't battered. You get pictures of those 3 areas, hopefully you should be in a good position to have a build on that receiver. I'm thinking 308 Criterion chrome line barrel, and I'm looking forward to putting it together. Maybe a Boyd stock or one of those Typo 2 stocks, which I love. I'd like to have one of those stocks for sure. But anyhow, Rifter signing off. How are you doing? Well, bye-bye.